I'll light it up during the game, and then we can talk about it next time. But we're already in game. Okay, well, hi. Yes, I'm here. Roddy's internet died. I sabotaged it to get an extra day of casting TSL. And to the top right side of the map, at Purple Terran, it's time. Because apparently we're on a quick roll to get started.
And his opponent zooming into the match for the Shopify Rebellion. It is Lambo. Nyum. Oh, that was kind of cool. That worked better than expected.
Better than expected.
I feel like that would be the title of my autobiography.
Better than expected. It's like, yeah, I really thought it was going to be kind of bad, but like, you know what?
Yeah, it was good. Expected value had things turning out pretty poorly, but here we are.
Especially by age 20. By age 20, I was like, I was really out of here. I thought there was nothing going right, but yeah, you know, here we are casting some TSL. It ain't so bad, right? Like, we get by.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is not so much the expectations being low as the result being high. Joining such illustrious casters as yourself, as ZG, you know, Roddy, Fear Dragon, Beowulf, and then at the live event we got.
For you to miss someone off.
I know, right? I was so stressed out about that. I was like, okay, there's 6 of them, and then of course Harston and Lambo.
I was like, you know what? Now I know who you're not bringing to the desert island, because I think that's the last thing I talked about on TSL, or one of the last memorable things I talked about. Because you asked the secret lab question, right? Like, who's going to be on it? Who would you take to desert island? And then me and CG had a whole discussion about it. It was a great question.
Oh, nice. Who'd you end up choosing?
Well, I think honestly for me the main takeaway was just not Roddy, but that was CG's first pick. So you know, yeah. But mostly just because I feel like anybody else would string something together, but I feel like Roddy would just sit there and be a bit like, "Oh no," you know. So, yeah.
Yeah. It raises a good point. Like, do you go for someone who's like big and strong, and therefore is going to be like a really big helper, but then if it ever comes down to like a battle royale, you're just screwed against them?
Well, that's a great question, but then it's StarCraft, so is there anyone that's really big and strong? Like, you know, apparently Zaun picked Dark because Dark is strong. Is the strong man in Korea. Is apparently the meme that's going around. So
he does work out. He's a big lad with thick biceps. You know, he's looking pretty fit overall. But I think I'd maybe go Harston because, you know, he's a giant guy. He feels like he'd be a great snuggler.
Yeah. Well, we figured this one out after when we went to the break. We're like, well, really, you should take Harston and Loco because they might actually send someone to save the YouTubers, you
know. People of value would actually be rescued.
Yeah, especially 2 of them. They might actually search party for us. So yeah, we got obviously a TVZ here, Time and Lambo. I think actually a very cool series. Time's been playing great lately. It's always fun to see him play, and especially when he's on like a bit of a streak, man. Like Time can be terrifying. There's not really anyone I say Time can't beat. I feel like Time's biggest issue is like stringing wins together, but yeah, at the minute he seems to be playing really well. I'm excited to see how he does against Lambo in this series, and obviously an important one is they both want to get to the Netherlands with 2 lives intact for their bracket run, of course.
Yeah, it would be really interesting because Lambo is currently slotted in as an analyst, and I believe he's a player though until he gets eliminated. As we do have a little bit of a Hellion attack. It's just the first kind of pressure, but Lambo's going to deal with it no problem. He just pulls the drones away for a moment. Now this is very interesting. A Raven coming on in out of Time. This is really the first thing that's, you know, not the most standard and expected thing. It's still very much a reasonable build within acceptable bounds and all that jazz, but it is something that's worth noting because he's going to be looking to clear a lot of creep with this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually really like it on this map as well because there's a lot of avenues of attack on this map, right? There's a lot of openings. There's a lot of places where creep can go. And so that just costs a lot of scans. And it's very hard to keep on top of creep because it's very hard to, you know, you see where the Hellions are now. They can't really go to the bottom very easily. They have to go all the way around to get to the bottom. So denying creep early is hard. So yeah, being able to just get the Raven up does help with that a bit. And this is something that we used to see on 2000 Atmospheres a bunch. People didn't really use it on any other map. The other really cool thing about it is that you can actually use the auto turrets to, well, in this case, clear out an Overlord. You can really use it to help skirmish with the Queens as well and just really fight for more map control than what you're usually meant to have at this stage, because you really can push on to creep a little bit. Obviously, use the auto turret on the Overlord here. That's fine. But he could have auto turreted towards the Queens, and the Hellions aren't taking any damage, and it just lets them maintain their presence for that much longer. I really love it. Like, it's very hard to keep the Raven alive and to make good use of it, but when you do it correctly, it actually has a lot of effectiveness.
Yeah, especially around this third base at the triangle location. If you can keep creep off of that left side, and you can manage to siege some tanks kind of snuggled up against the ramp, maybe one on the high ground, it can make defending a Marine tank push just a nightmare for the Zerg. It's really not fun to try and deal with that when you don't have the ability to wrap around, but he is going to rotate over to the bottom side and just look to, instead of focusing on one specific avenue, it looks like he's trying to generally keep the creep back, but Lambo's doing a good job of consistently respreading it, not letting time slow him down as much as he would like to.
Yeah, no, it's been a good fight back from Lambo, making sure that this is minimized in effectiveness. Just going to be seeing extra reactors coming online, and obviously it is a little bit slow usually to get set up from here, because you add, all the way up to 8 Hellions, sometimes even 10. The Raven is pretty gas expensive too. But now that we're going to get going, I really do like Time's opportunity to apply some pressure. Again, just going to rotate the other way. He doesn't have to scan, can just get rid of a couple of active tumors here, even one deeper. Again, this really does add up, and he's actually going to get all of these active tumors around the top side. It's keeping that Queen energy low, which is kind of a factor too, right? If you keep the Queen energy low enough, then, when your first attack comes in, the Queens don't have as many transfusions. Sometimes that can have an impact.
Oh!
This is going to be the slowest Bane run by ever. No! Wow, actually, it's very effective.
Oh, okay. For a second, I thought he was also going to get, like 5-10 SCVs right there. But getting the 4th command center for just 6 Banelings is it's an incredible pickoff right there. And Time, he should theoretically rebuild it right away, but he doesn't really have the money at this moment. He's obviously spending it all on attacking units. There we go. He does rebuild it. Something else we got to point out, Lambo's drone count got to an absolute nutty count very early on. He was at 78 drones at like 620 in the game, which is a phenomenal count. Now he's setting up for a big Lingbane counterattack. I'm really loving Lambo's position in this game, but he's got to be careful about this first push. Ooh, the Widowmines are all clumped up. That's a big loss right there, losing 3 Widowmines without any fire.
Actually lost the 4th one as well, right? The one behind was number 4.
Oh, jeez.
So. Yeah, that's really rough. He gets the supply block on Lambo, who is counterattacking into the Hellions, so the Hellions at home do help in this scenario. Good defense from Time. Yeah, it's a real shame, actually, because obviously for Time, if those mines are spread out, he could have done a lot here. It does sort of feel like he needs to do something, because, like you say, Lambo's being kind of greedy in a way. I don't even think it's greedy. I think it's like, hey, you build a Raven. That means no other pressure's coming my way. I just need to defend very well with the Queens, which he did. And from there, he can reap the benefits of just kind of being greedy and droning a bit. Loses a couple Queens now, as we do see a bit of success from Time, who is pushing the top as well, and this split pushing action is always fun to watch. Let's see if Lambo can get the splits right. Time needs to be careful as well, though. Bane's coming through. Right now, it's enough for Time to keep going forward, because Lambo just doesn't have enough up here, but that's on the way to be fixed right now as all these Lings show up. Good split back from the Lings, but they actually kind of stacked up a little more than expected. Okay, a few drones going down as well. These Marines on the bottom are still a threat, and Lambo didn't respect that enough.
No, he didn't. He loses actually just about all his Queens there on the right side. He's down to just now 5 Queens. We do see a cheeky Raven into the main. Looks like, did it get some drones earlier? Yeah, it's up at 5 kills, so it looks like it was able to get a couple of drones. Going to try and get some more here. We'll be able to get one, and forces a pull, but more importantly, distracting Lambo to open things up for this double drop, this, I guess, remnant of the main army from Time. And Time's going to tunnel the hatchery, and I think he's going to get it here. Yes, he will. Very nice job right there from Time. That was calculated. It did cost him a few units, but certainly it was worthwhile. Yeah,
you think it's worthwhile? It is tough, right? It's like, does Lambo need that base? You know what? 87 drones, yeah, he kind of does need that to make use of all of his workers. So yeah, it was worthwhile. Ah, man, it was very close. I feel like Lambo's been playing a little slow almost, right? Because it feels like he's always reacting to the pressure when it's already doing damage, rather than reacting to it as it's arriving, It just feels like he's like a couple seconds out of position, and that gives Time a good chance to get damage done. And Again, like over here, this just isn't quite enough right now, especially off creep. As young creep for a second, the Bane's turn. Now time's like, time to split. He's got a couple mines up the top, which haven't hit anything yet. They will hit the Overseer, but doesn't get a kill. Should actually kill it now. Another counterattack, though, from Lambo's coming in. There's a planetary force here to help Time defend. I don't think this is going to do much. We cancel a command center, but that's something that Time can absolutely deal with. As the Raven on the picture-in-picture is having a nightmare. Drops an auto turret as its final goodbye, and will be felled by that Queen and Spore-Crawler.
Oh, and the Queen even survives. Not that it matters too much, but that's such a nuisance. And it looks like that Widowmine did take down the Overseer before it could get sniped off. If that fires again, okay, Hydras are going to move out of the way. This is such a nuisance for the Zerg to deal with, having to clean up Widowmines that are just strewn around the map as leftovers. It's something that it's not that big of a deal to deal with, but it's just more attention that is drawn away from what you want to be doing, which is spreading creep, injecting, building units, all the things that you need to do as a Zerg player. As we have actually a big engagement. I don't know about this one from Lambo. He's going to try and run up a ramp into a bit of a concave in Time. He's going to take a pretty good fight right there. That felt over ambitious from Lambo.
It was just the entire army ran single file up into tanks initially as well. So the tanks actually took a lot of the damage but didn't die. So you still have the splash to continue this push with. Lambo is very close to getting to some very good things. Adrenal Glands is close to finishing. The Lurker Den's finished up, so we're not far from seeing upgrades. I believe Vipers have come to the stage as well now. As you see Liberator harassing at the same time, what can this Army of Time do? As Lambo really does desperately need to break this down and just give himself a chance to keep tacking up into all of these things that will help him massively in the future of the game. He just can't get there quite yet, and Time already has another push coming straight through the top side. Couple libs sieging. I'm going to start pushing up this ramp.
Nice job right there from Lambo to break those tanks before the reinforcements got in. And he actually temporarily knocked Time down to 0 tanks. And now we've got the Vipers here. I actually don't like the Abducts on Medivacs, having seen the Liberators. I think the Liberators are much more valuable targets. And, I mean, he doesn't see any tanks, but you have to assume that tanks are going to be reinforcing. As we actually see Time going for an army that feels like he wants to keep pushing, but he's also adding on Ghosts, which is kind of transitioning him towards the late game. So Time getting a lot of high-value units all at once.
Yeah, I mean, the Tank Ghost combo can be so good at defending as well, and it's really good when the first round of Lurkers come up. You can just hold your position quite nicely. Tanks definitely allow you to get to that higher Ghost count a bit more easily. Let's see how this goes. Time sees this army spreading out, at least on the bottom side, so he should be somewhat prepared. Of course, he has to do a little bit of a guess as to where it's going to come from. Now realizing it's coming from the left side as well. The Vipers flying in, not really finding much use straight away. And we're always going to be seeing this Bio army having to come back in from the right-hand side to basically retake this position. He does lose the command center. However, I feel like he's done a lot of damage. All of the Vipers have died, if I'm not mistaken, and he's even chasing these last few Banes down. And he has a ton of army left over. I mean, he might get a base for a base, which... honestly, you look at Lambo's base count, he's going to be on 5 bases after this. This is kind of okay for Time. Lambo gets the workers out, something Time couldn't do, but obviously Time's going to replace that base really quickly. But yeah, you can see resources lost is pretty much even across the course of that fight. A lot of snipes coming down to help take down some of those important units, such as the Vipers.
Losing a tank at the end of that is not what you want for Time. That's pretty unfortunate, and even a decent cleanup on some bio units on the top side. But still, getting the base count exactly back down to 5 for just Lambo. I would have expected Lambo to have more bases on the right side by now that he could transfer to, but he's actually going to go for another attack on the right side, hoping to catch his opponent before Time can rotate back over, and now going in on the top left as well. And that is not a planetary fortress, so Lambo's starting to get some openings here. We do see only a couple of SCVs were over there, but this is starting to look better for Lambo. He does need to, as you say, secure more bases, though. I think we need to see him going up to 6 or 7 or even 8 bases right now, because it's very tough to break a Terran player on Data C. Even with how far-flung the bases are, you want to have a lot of fallback measures as a Zerg player.
Yeah, that's very true. We do have the feelings up here. Trying to slow down this base being taken. Obviously, it's not going to deny this base, but he gets a couple SCVs right. Adds up that little bit as we get a medevac drop heading around that bottom right side. As the game settles for a few moments, I think Time's okay with this. He's taking his 5th base again. He's getting reset up. Lambo's doing the right thing. He's pushing forward on 2 different angles. He's taking that forward base on the bottom, and he's retaking the base he lost to the left. So he always has a second option in case he does lose one of the fights. you can always say, well, at least I've got the other side of the map mining. So that is one thing you can do very effectively on Data C, just because of, well, kind of the size of the map and the fact the map doesn't generally just go in one way. It goes kind of two directions as the game lengthens.
Yeah, and he's done a phenomenal job as well of reestablishing this creep. Oh, these Widow Mines could be big. Lambo trying to split. I think only one of the Widow Mines actually fired there, which is kind of funny. A couple of ducks will come on in, but he doesn't have the time to kill that second tank. So he's just going to have to disengage here. It's a bit of a bloody nose, but it opens things up for the Baneling attack on the 12 o'clock planetary. And he takes that down. Once again, it will be a base for a base, but I feel like this one, as long as Lambo can halt the advance of time right here and doesn't lose another base, I feel like this one favors Lambo a lot more.
Yeah, it depends if Time has another CC ready to float over there. He's got a couple. I'm not sure if they're just orbitals, though. If there's a CC that can lift off and become a planetary again. DC Time is going to keep this position going for himself. A couple more Vibers being brought into play. Lambo is really stuck on Lingbane Hydra. He had the Lurker, and he has the Lurker upgrades. We've just not really seen him utilize them, maybe just saying the Ghost count's a bit too high. I'd rather just keep trading out with Lingbane Hydra, which can be good. This push from Time's getting a bit too much done, man. These drones are in trouble as well. They didn't pull soon enough, so we're going to lose a good chunk of them. And if Time gets this bottom base as well, then it definitely swings into Time's favor, because that's going to be, what, 5 bases against 4 again for Time. It's absolutely going to be fine. And I think Time's going to be very happy with how this has turned out. Just this extra base being busted. And maybe the Lurkers did need to be here just to slow this down that little bit extra.
Yeah, this is certainly starting to look very dangerous for Lambo. We are going to see these Lurkers finishing up. They do have both of their upgrades, but there are a fair number of Ghosts and some pretty well-placed tanks. Lambo needs to get in on top of this army and flank it. Oh, but some Abducts coming in on the Ghost. That's going to be pretty handy as well, thinning out that Ghost count significantly, but Time is still looking to push forward, and he will get some pretty good snipes here on this army. Lambo, a couple more Lurkers burrowing on up, able to take down the Widow Mines. It is so close right now, very razor's edge, but Bioforce is going into the Lurkers. It's not what you want, and that's going to give Lambo just enough of a boost to move forward. Does he have enough to break the tank line, though? I don't think so. It's going to be so close. Lurkers, though, they will burrow up, and they will get these tanks.
I mean, a huge cost, though, right? That was a lot of Lurkers that went down. Time only gets pushed back because Lambo gave up a lot of units to do it. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Really good fight for Lambo, though. Wow, so many minerals going down. This is over the last 3 minutes because the action has just been that packed that the battle report hasn't had time to reset. So it's still a thing, though, coming out of this, right? 5 base versus 5 bases because Time's got reset on the top. Lambo needs to reestablish bases down to the bottom. Might even need to stop to drone a little bit somewhere along the way. That's going to become a little bit painful as well. I don't know, man. Like, I look at this and I still feel like Time's got some pretty good control of this game. More tanks, more Ghosts. And it just feels like Lambo's army isn't honestly, very good, right? Like, it feels like he's got this army now, which you'd like to be transitioning off of when more Ghosts are on the field, but he's only just got here. So, I don't know, I'm not fully convinced by Lambo's force. Excited to see what he can maybe do to convince me otherwise in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, the main thing that's really going well for him is that creep spread in the middle of the map, but Time just doesn't need to go there. He can swing around far to the right. He will even start clearing up a little bit of this creep, which is, good to do just to keep Lambo from really having a lot of map control with it. But the fact that Time can still attack through the right side if Lambo gets bases set up there, and he can still attack on the top left if Lambo takes that top left corner. I got to agree with you. It's feeling like Lambo needed to stop Time before he lost his second base on the bottom side, before he lost that, like the 530 base. But the fact that he did really leaves him in an uncomfortable and awkward situation where, yeah, like you said, he can't really afford the transition, but it feels like he kind of needs to, or he needs to get a really good fight where he catches Time unaware and maybe jumps on a bunch of bio or some unsieged tanks or some Ghosts. He will actually find some bio that's kind of on its own, and a couple of nice blinding clouds are going to end up a couple of tanks, but here come the Ghosts. They got to be careful not to go in single file, though.
Yeah, the tank getting siege up is really big because it can really push back those Lurkers just from afar. And that's exactly what Time is going to be able to do. The Lurkers are forced out of their position, forced to move away. We have Ghosts coming across here, a little scan going down. A few of the Creep Tumors are going to be picked off as well. I'm just going to be seeing the Medivacs coming across to heal up a little bit. So we obviously just want to take down this location and be able to set up this base for ourselves. The biggest problem with this base is that the high ground is quite useful that Lambo can utilize to kind of break it down and to siege up and hurt the mineral line basically. So not just where the lurkers are now, but even if he can get to the watchtower. So things to watch out for here for sure is that tank's gone very far forward, but it looks as though it's going to be okay for now. We're actually going to move forward and we're going to get some snipes off, and these lurkers not really protected, but here comes the flank in from the bottom side, and Time, maybe not expecting that, is now in full retreat mode with his ghosts, and a few of them getting abducted in as the Vipers do find some success. And once now, again, now Lambo ends up backing off. But this game has just been a real bruiser, one player takes a hit, the other guy takes a hit. It's been non-stop for a good amount of time at this point.
Yeah, it sure has. And the one thing I need to fault Lambo for on this, and that's really feeling like it might cost him in this game, is the fact that when he forces Time, or when Time commits heavily to one side of the map, he hasn't been quite quick enough to expand to the other side. So there's a couple of moments where we see it now where he's starting to take the top left side of the map, which is good, the top left base. But this is where Time is focusing his army. So if Time can push him back a little bit, he can potentially take at that base. But I would have liked to have seen, when this commitment to the top left side happened, that Lambo takes, not just that pocket base with high yield gas, but the bottom right base, and maybe even the base above that. But hold that thought, we're going to see an attack coming on in. We do have the blinding clouds hitting the tanks. Planetary Fortress is still able to fire at these Lings. The Ghosts are taking some pretty big hits from the Lurkers, but they're still able to get off a couple of snipes. If the Planetary goes down, this could be good for Lambo, but he is going to lose he's going to lose all of his Lurkers, and the base stays alive. Wait, there's one lurker. Okay, he rescanned. So I was like, hello?
That was so close as well, right?
Yeah. Man, that actually ends up being a disaster, I think, for Lambo. He needed to save those Lurkers for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Planetary not dying. He killed so many SCVs that were repairing the Planetary. I was like, oh, this might be okay anyway, but losing every Lurker is such a huge tech reset. And the thing is, now the Ghost count is still high, so in the next fights, you're going to see these Ghosts absolutely dominating, right? Because there's no longer too many Lurkers for them to get in and snipe. And that was kind of the issue, is like, Lambo's only done well because the Ghosts have been kind of having a lot of their snipes cancelled by taking damage. There's just not going to be the Lurker count to do that anymore because Lambo's not rich either. So, yeah, this next upcoming fight will be very tough for Lambo, as obviously Time has an extra base behind this as well now. And this generally only gets worse for Lambo from here on out, especially as Time now knows about the top left, so that's a few extra drones that will go down, and just means there's even less to get away with.
Yeah, I feel like this game is spiraling out of control for Lambo. He has finally taken this bottom right side of the map, but as you said, he's going to lose a lot of drones. And to be honest, I think this is the right call from Lambo. I think he just needed, once this base was cut off, he just needed to hope that Time, didn't check it for whatever reason. And to his credit, it took a while before he checked it, but now he has. And now this mining is shut down. Only 61 drones for Lambo. It feels like he doesn't really have the time to, rebuild those. Oh, these Ghosts. Big EMP right there on all the Vipers. And that's now 12 supply that is useless until those Vipers recharge. Of course, they can with that consumability, but that feels like that takes any wind out of the sails of a potential counterattack right there for Lambo.
Now that Lambo's lost the top left, Time just gets these bases almost for free in the top left, right? Like, you can just keep on expanding. Like, when you get that forward base, getting the high ground base behind it usually comes straight after. And yeah, now that he's going to have that, Time's just going to have even more eco to work with. I like that Lambo's adding some infestors, because like I said, I think now the Ghosts are going to be able to do way too well against the Lurkers, so it's nice to see those infestors coming out. It's also a good way to spend what was kind of a heavy gas bank from Lambo and make some use of that, so I kind of like this. There's, 5 Lurkers on the map. You do need something like Fungals at this point to stop those Ghosts getting too crazy.
Yeah, it's tricky to do it, though, as Nice Abduct does grab a Liberator right there. The tank count is still at 8. Now, they are spread out across the map, so potentially maybe these infestors could find some good value. We do see a couple of abducts coming on in, and the Ghosts are separated away from some of the tanks, and some good Fungals do connect, but unfortunately there's no follow-up, and he's not able to take down the Ghost. But we're going to see a re-engage coming in from Time. He looks at his opponent's army and says, you don't have enough to actually fight these. He just snipes down quite a few Hydras, and now I think we are going to see Time really moving forward. These Ghosts have obviously been the MVP for him. Snipes on the Queens, absolutely obliterating them. And as we see the Monarch float to the surface, I think that is Lambo's opportunities in this game being squeezed off, as this base is heavily threatened.
Yep, I mean, this base going down is really going to take economy away from Lambo that he needs at this point. The Infestors got hit by an EMP towards the tail end of that last fight too, which means they don't have as much energy to work with here as we set up. I'm having a little bit of trouble kind of getting up this ramp and into position, but I think eventually he's going to get here, and you can see the drone starting to drop now as Lambo doesn't want to pull them away. He kind of knows he needs to keep this. It's a massive fungal as that one Infestor does get forward. It gives him the jump on these ghosts, forcing the split back, forcing this to be just tanks blown up. I mean, that was what Lambo needed, but it feels like every moment right now in these fights, he needs like a really ridiculous start to the fights, which, yeah, this time it happened, but how many times is it going to happen again? Like, is he going to get other opportunities like that? I wouldn't really imagine so, and times it's going to be that little bit more careful now. It's like, yeah, okay, that one kind of got away from me. Got away with all the ghosts still. Just be a bit more split up, a bit more careful this time around. We hit an EMP already. We're obviously trying to get forward from snipes here. Fungals can't get in range in time. Again, just going to continue this duel over this bottom right base as he completely just overtakes the top left, by the way. All those bases coming online is massive for him.
Yeah, this makes things... It feels like it's now Lambo on a timer, and things are just getting scarier and scarier for him. Well, as time progresses, and time is progressing forward, we are going to see this base going down pretty much, at this point now, uncontested. Lambo's going to take the fight afterwards, but it's not like the Broodlings are going to add that much power for it, and he's going to commit in. I think this is the last hurrah out of Lambo. Chiji is going to get called in time, is going to take a great back-and-forth game number one after about 27 minutes on Day to See.
Yeah, no, I mean, he put up a heck of a fight, right? He really made Lambo have to kind of, work very, very hard just to stay competitive in the game. And in the end, it was kind of so many close fights that came to culminate in just time being a little bit ahead. But it just, you could tell when this game kind of broke, because all of a sudden time has that entire top left. All of those lurkers dying on that planetary fortress just gave time everything he needed, because then he had all the goes. It was never really a scary force. The only hope Lambo had was the Infestors coming out and hitting some mega fungals. And to be fair, they did pretty okay. There was some pretty good fungals. It was just a little bit too late. He was already trailing at that point. His army just wasn't really as competitive. So, yeah, it didn't turn out to be enough in the end. And time gets himself a 1-0 lead in this best of 3 matchup. What a run so far.
Yeah, a great showing from Time, and we see why he is such a good player, because he recognized his position very well at many critical moments during the game. I think the thing is, I like Lambo did lose a lot on that planetary fortress, and I pointed it out, and I was like, man, he really stuck around too long. But I don't blame him for the decision, because you made an excellent point. Once you secure that base as the Terran player, you get the top left. And Lambo could not afford to let that happen. The game was already slipping out of his control. He knew that he needed to make his stand at that point. And that was really the turning point where it went from, it felt like ever so slowly Time was taking control of the game. Like Lambo was in a good spot for a while, but Time was kind of ripping it out of his hands. And then that was the big one where it went from being like, okay, it's close, to like, boom, like you're arm wrestling somebody and they snap the wrist back. And that's kind of what it felt like there.
In the top left-hand corner, he's now got to play on his opponent's map pick as well, so it's going to be tough as he's down a map. High Yellow Zerg player from the Shopify Rebellion. This is Lambo.
And his opponent, with some brilliant positioning, some great play overall, it is Kitesy Gaming's Time.
Another way you can kind of tell how close that game was is, I feel like a lot of the way in how Lambo played, and obviously this is a little bit stylistically as well, but he really stuck on Lingbane Hydra a lot longer than he needed to, because he had the Lurker Den set to go, and it was a long time until he made Lurkers. And at first I thought that was a bit of a stylistic choice as well, because he's like, I'm keeping up aggression, I'm keeping this game moving in my favor, why stop to build the Lurkers now? He's got too many ghosts almost, so Lingbane Hydra's still effective here. And then, later on, obviously the Infestors never came into play, right? And that really was just a case of, man, he's just so strapped for cash, how do you afford the Spellcasters? It's such an active game. And that obviously became the issue, because in the end, Lambo was the one that took the fight that lost all the tech, and Time still had his ghosts. If Lambo has the Infestors all the way throughout, it's much more likely he can take a better fight against the ghosts, but obviously getting there is very difficult.
Oh, it is certainly not easy. Yeah, it was. I think you're right in that he felt like he couldn't relinquish momentum. And it's just, it is really tough. But Time is so good at knowing how to transition into the late game in a smooth and cohesive way. There was a moment where he started building Liberators where I think he thought that he could get something done with like a snowball push. And I was saying, oh, like he's going into more tanks and he's continuing the aggression. But he recognized very quickly that no, he wasn't going to be able to do so. So he just stuck with the 2 Liberators and then went for the Ghost, went for more tanks, and, made a slow push forward towards that 5th base, towards that 6th base. And it's funny because it was him being aggressive, but it was being aggressive defensively almost. Like he can continue to push the territory that he controlled forward in a very meaningful way.
This is a really cool game, man. Sometimes these long games in TVZ lately can be a bit like, okay, we're camping out, the Zerg is just throwing units at him, trying to break him, but this was anything but, right? Like, this really was both players making their attacks. Time was pretty much always active on the map himself, so it's just a really cool game. I did, again, just to bring up one last thing about that last game, is initially I felt like Lambo was a little bit slow at points, kind of reacting to some of the positioning of Time and to some of the units showing up. That's something which I feel like he needs to get a bit sharper about this game. Just figure out where that army is ahead of time, because one of the reasons he was falling behind and not having a lot of control himself is just because Time was able to be everywhere that Lambo wasn't. And yeah, credit to Time, he's moving Lambo around, but Lambo can do better than that. We know he can do better than that. We know he can be in position to deal with all these things, and that's what he needs to do if Time is going to play this well on Moondance as well.
Absolutely. I do want to point out something in terms of the build orders here. We did see Lambo going for a pool first. He didn't do anything aggressive off the back of it, but he did use it to secure a very quick 3rd hatchery. He used to do this actually a little bit on Blackburn. As we do see a scout coming on in, Time recognized that it was in fact a pool first and could tell based on some of the timings of the hatcheries, I assume, and he wants to make sure there's no roach warren. And Lambo has actually gone for quick 3 hatch plays and then built a roach warren behind that. So we can see that Time is taking that potential very seriously. He didn't even fire a shot with that Reaper, I don't think. He just purely wanted the scout. And I think that's a wise decision against a player like Lambo, who can be very dangerous and come out with some very clever builds.
Absolutely. I like this build from Time. The Widowmine 6 Marines. It's really fun. And if you can get in position on the main and get the Widowmine on the ramp and zone the Zerg out a little bit, it can just be so scary to do. Like, it's surprising how much, like, so few units can actually do. This Overlord here is seen, so Time should be able to either go around it, or he's actually going to push forward for the Overlord kill, going to try and get the mine in range. Don't think that is going to connect, just a little bit too far away. Oh, Widowmine's
hello?
I guess that looks a bit weird because it's up the ramp, right? So it's maybe not as far, and a bit of eye trick. But I was convinced that was going to connect.
Yeah, I was with you 100%. I was like, yeah, there's no way that Overlord goes down. But now he gets 2 Overlords. Will lose the Widowmine itself, but I would say this is a pretty nice little bit of harassment coming out from Time. Lost the Widowmine and the Hellion, but was able to pick off 2 Overlords, and is just a nuisance. Generally speaking, he's just being a nuisance, and that's always an annoying thing. And actually, never mind, this was very worthwhile because it did supply block Lambo for a little bit.
And he had like 500, 600 minerals in the bank too, so like Lambo was really supply blocked, It's not one of these times where it's like, oh, I'm supply blocked, I'll just start up my Baneling Nurse or my Lair. Like, he'd already done all that, so he was waiting to build drones, and that did slow him down, so very successful attack from Time. I only have a minor criticism, which is that he burrowed the mine when he really didn't need to burrow it, so he could have just stayed alive in the medevac while it was recharging, and then he would have had a Widowmine still alive here, so very minor criticism just because, everything else went so well for him. Obviously, still a fantastic trade, fantastic start, and we'll see what he does from here on out. Looking to be pretty darn aggressive as 1-1 is on the way. Stimpak's finishing. We'll already see Medevac's trying to go across the map, just having some trouble picking up the final Marine. And the Lings miss those Medevacs leaving, but should know something's happening because, well, there's absolutely nothing else here, as they do get blocked from getting inside at least. As we see Time now building tanks, definitely looking like he wants to commit pretty heavily on these 2 bases. And there's an extra reactor too. Oh,
yeah, he's
obviously taking his head behind it.
Yeah, he's got the 3rd CC landing, but we are going to see some aggression coming on in, nonetheless, off these 2 Medevacs. Looking to get something done. And this is pretty early right here, out of time. Lambo is not prepared for this. He's going to lose the Spore Crawler. His transfuses are good. And the Banelings will get close enough to force the liftoff, but I still, once again, feel like Time is doing a pretty decent job. Lambo is on a solid worker count, and feels like Time maybe recognized Lambo's droning patterns and was trying to punish that in this next game, but Lambo able to get enough units out to deal with this. He does lose another queen, and Time is doing a phenomenal job of keeping all of his units alive. Oh, as I say that this one Marine is not going to be kept alive. It's going to have a... that was the Marine that got the memo. Like, it's like, wait, when are we showing up to the fight? Is this PST or EST?
Because Marine's like, I'm just going to prove this caster wrong. Doesn't like it at all as these medevacs do escape after getting some group tumors. Failing counterattack and a roll in on the bottom side. The tank just unsiege Time. Are we watching? Yes, we are. So actually pretty good save, right? 2 SCVs only going down. Very manageable amount. Very worthwhile. From Time's point of view, because those Banelings just don't get anywhere near enough done. And right now, this is 1-1 against 0-0. Push right now from Time would honestly still be very scary. These Marines unload initially. Probably have to load up here. I know his reinforcements about to get there. Didn't have to load up. His reinforcements just about got there in time to make this worth sticking around for. And here we go. Big push. And yeah, I'm a little bit scared for Lambo because the next 30-40 seconds before he has the upgrade, I feel like he's going to want to avoid the fight. And that's why he's just going for the major counterattack. At least it looked like it. Now he's looking to swing around for the full-on flank. So yeah, Lambo even trying to figure out what he's going to do for the best. He has the Lings running from the backside. He needs to engage from the front at the same time, though. Now Time knows what's up. Maybe Time could just unsiege and get away from this. It's not like he doesn't have the medevacs.
Yeah, I think, yeah, he certainly could do this, but he might stick around and try and take advantage of the high ground. Lambo's just waiting for his 1-1, though, and I think that's a very wise move, and he's going to be looking to swamp this army. Time does take a bit of position on at the high ground with those Marines, and a great grenade to start things off. Good target fire with the tanks, but it's still going to be a solid cleanup, I think, out of Time. However, the Baneling snipes Time. No, oh my god!
As like Lambo stop, he's gonna kill them all. He just kept running at him, and I mean, I get it. You want to force him to lift up and stuff, but like sometimes, you know, it's better to pull away. I mean, he could have just pulled the Banes away as well, right, and let the Lings chase. Because it wasn't like there was like a ton of Marines. Wow, that's really nice. Just extra little bit of flourish here from Time. And that's gotta feel good as well, right? Moments like that. When the game's kind of, you know, still pretty even, right? Still within reach for either side. Moments like that definitely make you feel good about how you're playing and then make you feel better. This is a great run by Lambo, though. He's going to get the 4th CC that's building, and that's massive. Big slowdown for what Time wants to do. There's a lot of Lings that are over here, and Time is on the other side of the map, catching a lot of the morphing Banelings before they are able to get done, and that's the benefit of having killed off all those previous Banes. Lambo has broken through into Time's natural. Oh, who's this worse for? I feel like it might be worse for Time eventually, because if he loses too many SCVs here, recovery is going to be tough, especially with the 4th base cancelled. 20 workers are going to die. Lambo's lost a lot of units. Obviously, Time's army still across the map, still pressing into position, still needs to do more.
Lambo is going to try and set up for a big flank right here to come in on this army, but it might be a little bit of an unfortunate timing. 2-2, though, is going to complete a little bit too late for Time to take a great engagement. In fact, it is going to be Lambo forcing him up into the main base, forcing him to lift up, and Time choosing to go into the main base, I should say. Still, Lambo gets a ton of damage done. Time does target fire down another Baneling right there, and it's going to allow him to stand and fight for just a little bit, but there's just too many Lings. Lambo will clean it up, and he comes out of this, I think, quite far ahead. He is up. He's got 4 bases, and then he's got that 5th base in the back. He's rebuilding now the 6th base. He is behind in resources lost, as we can see, but that's to be expected in a situation like this. His economy is quite a bit better, but Time is certainly absolutely still in this game, and he's getting up into his 3-3. He's adding on that Drilling Claws upgrade. Lambo has been playing pretty much pure Ling Bane up until this point, and will go into a Hive. I think this is actually a decent game for Ultras for Lambo right now.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, right? You know, you're in a position where you've got a bit of momentum on your side. Ultras can definitely keep that momentum. You don't have to, like, really divert from what you're already doing to make Ultras good in these scenarios, right? And that's what is usually powerful about Ultra Transition, is it's just, it's smooth, it goes easily. As these medevacs would like to get out of there alive as well. Time really needs to appreciate every unit that he's got right now, as he is about to get toward his own 4 bases. He needs to get this 4 base secured, because obviously Lambo's base count is on the rise. So yeah, if he doesn't get this 4 base secured, he's in a bit of trouble. He's even going to add an extra CC already. I'd just love to see him add 1 CC in the back, just in that back base. That base is basically free, and I know you maybe want to take certain positions on the map, and these positions might help you push forward, but if you're going to build an extra CC right now, why not just take that back base, and you've got guaranteed mining to send workers to if your 4th gets busted down.
Yeah, it feels like such a no-brainer. But I understand he doesn't feel like he can... Okay, there we go. As you know, he does it now. We are going to be seeing a big attack coming in from Lambo with his 2-2. I don't know about this. Well, he will have links coming in from the top side as well. Going to get on top of the tanks.
No.
They're going to get some good work done. He doesn't have enough. Doesn't have enough.
Gets 2 SCVs. You could just see it was a slaughter, right? Everything's running into the choke. The tanks are doing fantastic amounts of splash damage. This was horrible for Lambo, and the thing is, this attack's maybe okay if he wipes out a mineral line at the same time, because it's that momentum. He's leaning into ultras. Suddenly the Terran has to rebuild economy. They're not set to deal with ultras. They get wiped out next fight. Now it's like, actually, for Time, the armies get reset a little bit for free here. Time does need a way to deal with ultras to some extent, though. Like, he's only got Marines right now. Doesn't have any Marauders. Okay, he is starting to build Ghosts, so looks like he's going to be okay there. Yeah, no, I mean, this for Time really felt like he just gave him... He kind of just... Lambo lent out a hand and said, "Here, I see you need a hand in this game right now. It's not going great for you, maybe, but I'll give you a little way back into it." Just an unnecessary fight for sure.
Yeah, it looked really, really bad at first. And then for just a second, I saw the Lings getting in on top of the tanks on the top right. And I was wondering if maybe Lambo could make something happen, but he just did not have the units. The positioning from Time was a little bit too strong. The defenses were a little bit too strong. The walls were a little bit too helpful. And Lambo ends up throwing away a lot of units. He is going to get Ultralisks now, but as you said, he didn't do any damage to the economy, which I think was probably his goal there. He is adding on Dropper Lords here. Now, that is something I don't expect to see in a TVZ.
Very much so due with the map, right? It's, once this defense gets set up here from Time, very hard for Lambo to bust into any of these positions if Time just wants to sit back. The Dropper Lords give him away. They give him an access point, right? Same as what a Nidus would. But the Dropper Lords actually are kind of like a little bit more guaranteed sometimes than a Nidus, because the Nidus can just get denied. The Overlords, if they aren't seen coming, typically, they'll at least get the unload and can cause a distraction. And sometimes all you're looking for is the distraction to then take the rest of the fight with as well. So, yeah, definitely imagine it's something along that line of thinking from Lambo, as you'll have those going around the left side. And he is spread out everywhere to attack on multiple fronts and to test how well Time can defend. Let's see what kind of Time can do. And he's been setting up defensively. So we'll see if he's going to be able to make it work out. As this clan tree is going to survive, by the way. That's a pretty big deal, even if you lose the SCVs. Base staying alive is usually most important.
It certainly is. A very wise decision from Lambo to disengage with his second army through the middle. We are going to see... one of the Overlords actually doesn't unload. Command Center will go down on the top side, but there's a lot of ghosts. You can't break through there. I think, he wants to go for the back base there with the other link drop. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cute.
I personally...
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say Lambo's kind of unlucky, because the only reason Time had any units in the main is because the tanks were stuck. So you just had 3 tanks there, so they weren't meant to be there at all. And they actually acted as a pretty good defense to the Lings in the main, at least. 20 SCVs still go down here overall, but as long as you're not losing bases, rebuilding SCVs is very easily done. And I can't help but imagine that resources lost in this game is already quite heavily over into Time's favor. Yeah, very heavily in Time's favor. Less than half of what Lambo has lost. I mean, that's impressive even. So it's kind of rough. Lambo needs to outmine Time massively. And if Time isn't losing bases, then Lambo's not stopping in mining, then this game becomes very tough for Lambo. So he needs to be very careful about the fights he picks in the next few moments.
Yeah, he certainly does. It's going to be a tough situation for sure. I'm getting very worried for Lambo here. Similar to what we saw in game number 1, it feels like Time is slowly taking control of the game. I think if you're going to go for the drop, by the way, I would much prefer to see like 5 Dropper Lords on a map like this and, unload 40 Lings. I know it's a big commitment, but it feels like 8 Lings or 12 or 16 Lings really can't do much in terms of high impact. But it feels like 40 Lings, then we're actually talking about breaking through, especially with how much time committed to static defenses and, defensive setups on the front lines. We are going to see the Lings trying to come on in, and they eat a pretty big Widowmine shot to the face. Ghosts are going to be able to get back to the safety of those tanks. Ultralisk going to get sniped. Yeah, will go down.
He was so low. I thought he was going to get away.
If we look at the resources lost, we see a very sad situation here for Lambo. A couple of Banelings will get some connections. Lambo, ooh, the Banes, nope, not going to get on top of the Ghost either. Yeah, resources lost is getting so out of hand.
I thought he was going to snipe the Overseas as well, which is actually kind of painful at this point. Lambo is not exactly super rich. Rebuild an Overseas actually does cost quite a bit, so I thought that would have been some easy snipes. Didn't happen. Infest is trying to come into this game and make a bit of a difference as D-Time getting rid of, actually kind of an important base to get rid of, right? Just take something away from Lambo. I mean, Lambo still has plenty of other bases going on. Wouldn't mind there. Could have had a much nastier connection as it is the Ghosts being evacuated. Lambo actually picks up quite a few units on the tail end of this. It feels like that last little push from Time lost him quite a bit. So, yeah, maybe Lambo getting something out of this here. I think the big issue is, of course, that Time just takes yet another base. And eventually, how do you outmine Time in this game, I suppose, is the biggest question of all. The Queens are going to go on a wonder and just causing more resource issues for Lambo.
Yeah, it's looking increasingly desperate here for Lambo. His bank is gone. I mean, Time doesn't have a bank either, but it still feels like his position really can't be broken anywhere. It feels like he just has so much more agency on the map. There's a great little creep spread path right in front of Time's base. But that doesn't actually do anything for Lambo. All it does is provide vision, which is obviously great, but it can't let him attack those bases. It's just... It looks nice, is really what it is. It looks really nice.
Yeah, there's no real good attack path in on that right side. It's so choked up. It's so sim-citied. Can't imagine anything too great happens there. We do have a bit of a defensive spot here. A couple of Thors are getting explorative and going to find a couple of spines to fight against and stuff. So this is kind of fun as one of the Thors gets abducted in. Felt like that was inevitable. And yeah, apparently we're going to keep on fighting here for a little bit. Clan really wants to get something done. Has the Ghost to believe... I suppose, just assume we can get some good snipes off. If needed, the next Thor gets abducted in too. It's actually kind of painful because Broodlords are on the way. That is the transition that Lambo is going for. So Time was kind of ahead of it. He was prepping properly. But losing a couple of the Thors will just make dealing with it that little more tough. Means you need to invest a little bit more. And again, that's maybe a problem. He's going to end up filling this base, so I suppose it was maybe worthwhile overall. And he has 3 more Thors popping, so I suppose at the end of the day, it was manageable. He's also getting range liberators, so range is very nice as well for zoning in this later stages of the game too. I can't believe Lambo's trying to take that forward base on the right side, by the way, like just up from the base of Time. I know Time's not putting a lot of aggressive kind of pressure on over on that side, but that seems very hopeful, because if Time wants to move like 3 tanks forward, I'm pretty sure he could just do that and deny that base very easily.
And that's kind of the strength of Moondance for Terran versus Zerg, is it seems so impossible to hold those high ground bases on both sides. You've got siege positions where you can hit from the low ground on the bottom base, on the top base. It's so close to Time's territory. Oh my goodness. We saw a Neuroparasite, didn't we? We saw a Neuroparasite and an EMP. Yes, we did. And he got the double EMP, so he drained so much Ghost energy. This actually all of a sudden gives a huge opportunity to Lambo to try and get something done with a big Broodlord Infestor push. How many Infestors does he have? He has 8 Infestors, 2 Vipers. This is the most dangerous moment of the game that Time has seen in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, last 10 minutes for sure, as the Liberator top right as well stopped in range of a spore. That's such a shame. That could have been annoying. It just could have forced Lambo to at least pay some attention somewhere, and then you're buying yourself time to potentially get more energy back on those Ghosts we've just been mentioning. That is going to become a talking point here for a little while. It feels as though Lambo doesn't believe in his ability to push forward, though, so he does not. And that means that Time kind of gets away with this, right? The Ghost energy is replenishing now, and you know, at this stage, we're already going to be talking about those Ghosts having at least a couple snipes on them each again, so... And yeah, this base, like I said, 1 tank is just slowly chipping at it. You can probably deny this tank, but it's probably going to be more expensive than you want it to be.
I feel like this is Lambo's opportunity. This is maybe his only shot in this game. And I'm glad that he's pushing now, but it feels like he really needed to make something happen on that bottom side. Instead, we're going to see a bit of a base trade coming on out here. Now, we could see Lambo going for the infinite Broodling play. He is getting up to 17 Broodlords, and this is the kind of thing that can be very strong in a situation like this. If you're able to, you know, attack your own Broodlings, consistently push them forward, you can make the range very, very long.
Yeah, it kind of becomes a little bit wild at this point as Time has decided just to clear out one base on that left side and pull back. I think the one thing Time needs to do here is obviously hold.
Oh,
He doesn't want to go running into a fight. He wants Lambo to have to run into him still. So coming back ASAP kind of allows him to defend these positions. He's actually going to go into the center here and we'll see what sort of angle Time's going to pick a fight at, because obviously you've got to be very cautious with how you engage this fight. Can pretty much decide this game because it's not like either player has a massive bank to be working with right now.
no, they certainly do not. It is not the biggest bank. I want to point out something great that Time did there. He was able to target fire some Banelings with the Planetary Fortress, which was a great play. Oh, unfortunately, moving into a scan is never what you want to do. A couple of fungal growths will catch a ghost or two. The ghosts are still a little bit lower on energy than you'd like to see them. Looks like one volley of Liberators hitting those Broodlords was able to do a decent little bit, and as Time kind of abandons the position with his ground army, oh my god, your Liberator are belong to us. That's so cute. He's obviously going to kill it off because you don't want to just keep neural parasiting it. That's too much of a waste of energy, but a very cute move right there from Lambo.
That was, that was definitely a fun little something, right? Make sure the Lib doesn't move away and stuff. I mean, the problem is what Time has achieved is he's basically taken over the left side of the map, and these are bases which Lambo hasn't really touched for a long time, right? Like, when he's had them, it's been for a little bit. They're nowhere near being mined out, and with the resource difference, Time is essentially going to end up trading equally on bases, or mining equally on bases, and I still feel like Lambo has to stop a base from coming online. With the resources lost like this, he needs to stop a base coming online or really trade, like, so well with these Broodlords, which, like you've been saying, is kind of possible. Like, it gives us maybe more hope than we've had for Lambo in a long time, but even then, I'm not fully convinced. Sometimes these Broodlord armies just disappear, especially when the Thor count is at, what, like 10 or so? It's a ridiculous amount of units. It's going to be a really tough fight to take on the side of Lambo, I feel like. Let's see if he can get Time to slip up.
There it is. That's what I was looking for, is attacking your own Broodlings, your own... In this case, he started off with a Creep Tumor. You're able to make the Broodlords go forever, and that is what we are looking for Lambo to try and make something happen. He is sharking around with Infestors as well. He's looking to make a huge play on this army. Sporecrawler is going to try and move forward to deal with the Liberators. Liberator's going to siege up. Fungal Growth is not going to connect, I don't think, on the Ghosts. Just going to hit a couple Thors in the front line. This is where the Hellbats are really going to be able to shine, though, and clean up those Broodlings extremely effectively.
I feel like these Infestors aren't really meant to be fungaling, though. I feel like these Infestors are kind of meant to be neural parasiting the Thors, and that's how you can win these battles. To me, this is not a fight that Lambo is winning or slowly winning. Do you see the Broodlings maybe now going to be a bit better because we've obviously lost a lot of the Hellbats that were cleaning the Broodlings up quickly beforehand. Still got the Liberators here, and they actually shot down an Infestor or two. Can't imagine Lambo's too happy about that. The Infestor count is not amazing, and the energy count of those Infestors is even worse. 4 new Liberators coming up from Time. He knows how important it is for these Liberators to zone out those Infestors, and it really is. He needs to be able to keep those Infestors away from Neuraling the Thors, or if they neural them, they need to die moments later, because otherwise, half your Thors fighting Thors, that's how you lose this fight big time as a Terran player.
Yeah, it's... If those Thors can't get in on top of the Broodlords, if the Broodlings can choke them on up, if they... Obviously, the Infestors can neural parasite... The Thors are really the big key units in this fight for the Terran player. And the fact that there's very few starports, only 2 starports versus 5 factories, shows that Time is really dedicated towards making this work. And there we go. We are going to see the Changeling being used. That's what I was looking for once again out of Lambo. He's going to be able to get a little bit of damage done to the Thor. Hellbats will show up, though, and they're going to start to really clear out those Broodlings quickly. So good job from Time. Lambo, though, he's on 24 Broodlords.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's almost like you wonder as Time gets richer here, is it worth him thinking about like an air transition? You see him starting a +1 air attack. Yeah, it's funny because like usually it's like there's one big fight and that's it. It's like, well, you don't really want to air transition just for that because you could actually die to the follow-up. But in this case, I actually think the air transition might be worthwhile because it is just so heavy on Broodlords, right? These Broodlords are not a supporting cast, they are the main force. Lambo is starting 2 new lairs, a new Spire, Infestation Pit, Spawning Pool. He recognizes that he might be losing a lot of his production here As this Terran army is kind of surrounded, though. Like, where is the escape? This is also happening off creep. We fungal growth, hoping to catch the Ghost. The Ghost looking for hit EMPs. The Thors are getting in range of those Broodlords, and this fight is going to break out right now. The Broodlords are kind of thinking about maybe backing away. Some Banes roll in as well. The Broodlings are doing very well against the Thors. Can the Thors get rid of enough Broodlords here? The Liberators are fighting the Broods as well. The Broods, oh no! The Libs turned around on the Corruptors. I actually think the Libs should have stayed on the Broodlords. I think they could have got rid of so many of them. The last few Broodlords here are dropping as the couple of Thors that are left are continuing to fight through this. Lambo has got more supply, but I imagine that's mostly in production. 20k resources lost, favoring time here. He's still got mining bases, and yeah, it's 11 Ultras on the way. I don't think 11 Ultras is the move right now, but of course he's not rich enough to rebuild in a Brood, so he's very limited in what you can do, and that's the problem. If you don't win it with that one army as Lambo, yeah, I mean, you're just probably not in a good enough spot to win the game, I don't think.
No, it feels like you need it. He traded well enough for a Remax to beat time if time had no money in the bank. And it will still take time a while to rebuild this. And I like the fact that Lambo's trying to chip away at his opponent's economy a little bit. I don't know if he can actually kill this base. He's going to try with the Ling Bane. But yeah, he recognizes very quickly he doesn't quite have enough. I also like what Time was doing. He wanted to see what the Remax was, so he scanned a couple of half-trees to see if he could figure it out. But the Ultralisks, they are going to try and find an opening. Can they pinch off these Ghosts? No, they will manage to sneak away to the low ground. Very important that Time is able to keep his army intact while he, well, to be frank, more slowly rebuilds his army than Zerg. He just larva functions to rebuild everything all at once. Lambo does get a base, which is very significant. But his army is not going to do as well against Times unless he can take a good fight before Time is able to fully max out again.
See Corruptors being built, and the problem is those Corruptors are because he needs to make sure he's got a way to deal with the Liberators. It's not like he can justify making more Broodlords here. He would just never have enough Broodlords, right? To really be scary. You know, you talked about just how many there was last time around, and that was a big reason why it was successful. Don't think that would happen a second time around, so yeah, I don't think there is a right answer for Lambo. Honestly, at this point, the previous fight didn't go well enough. He didn't basically wipe Time out completely with it, and now Time just going to retake the bases he just lost a little bit, keep mining, rebuild his own economy just a little bit, because he's got an army that for Ultras is nigh on unengageable. 6 Broods are morphing in. There's 10 Thors though. Like, it's just, I just don't believe in that Broodlord count. It just needs to be so much better, I think.
Yeah, I don't hate the Ultralisks as a concept, but I think you needed to be going right in with them. I don't think waiting around with them is the play, because now you've got about, what, 66 supply of snipe bait is what it feels like at this point. Plus you add on the Liberators, 9 Liberators on the field, 10 Thors are going to do great. We now have +2 ship weapons, which means the Liberators are going to be hitting even harder against those Ultras, against those Infestors, against everything. I really feel like it's going to take a mistake from Time in order for Lambo to get the engagement that he needs.
No, I mean, I can't agree more, man. Like, let's see. Well, let's see how these fights go, because in my eyes, this should be like Time ending this fight on like 190 supply, and Lambo on like nothing at all. Like, that's how bad this army composition is at the moment. Like, Time just seems to have too much of everything. It needs to be a fantastic engage in from Lambo. He's got the potential of surrounding, right? Like Broods and Infestors from different angles, the Ultras from the other way. This is perhaps how I see this fight going best. The Broods are there, and he realizes, maybe I need to keep these Thors together a little bit. The Infestors will be looking for that Mega Fungal on the Ghosts. And Time doesn't see where those Infestors are coming from. We are going to land Neural Parasites. It's exactly what you're looking for. He needs to get rid of these Infestors. It's a massive fungal growth, and the Ultras get to engage in. The Ghosts go running. Can they get the snipes off to protect the rest of this army? This was the best fight you could have asked for Lambo, and yet here we stand with Time still coming out okay at the end of it. And I mean, it was the best fight Lambo could have found. So many Neurals, massive fungal growth, coming in from the different angles. Wow, I mean, Time being able to work his way out of trouble there was impressive in itself.
It certainly was. Lambo manufactured that engagement in a phenomenal way. He kept the Ultras on the top side very far out of view. He was able to keep his opponent guessing about where the Infestors were. They were able to come in from an unexpected angle. And then the main army was, well, no, not even the main army, just what looked like the main army, the Broodlords, was kind of able to clip away at a couple of frontline Thors, Time kind of getting whittled down on at that front on the right. God, what an engagement out of Lambo. And as you said, Time still was able to come out of it in an okay position. But I have to agree with you, going into that setup, it felt like that was an impossible engagement from Lambo. That was one of the best engages I've seen in a very long time, considering the quality of army.
Oh, no, absolutely. It had to be an amazing engagement for Lambo to do anything there, and it really was. This is actually complicated for Time because his production is here, so he kind of has to fight this position, right? He can't really just let this slide away. So he is going to be forced to come into a fight maybe sooner than he wants because he's not fully rebuilt just yet. Oh, you can see the Broodlords, though, taking a beat, and the Hellback count is surviving for the moment. And Infestor reinforcement gets taken down. The Lings streaming in from the other side as well. Not looking pretty in these Ghosts if they can find some snipes. He just hit EMPs on the Vipers, so at least takes those out of the equation for the moment, and he is looking to hold this spot. Time going to retake the supply lead of this game, and now he's reclaimed the position where he can rejoin his production units. It's getting awkward because obviously Lambo has a setup here, and Time also wants to protect the left side, but at the moment there's not enough from Lambo hitting that left side to really make a difference. Maybe 16 Balins can do something to this Ghost count, though. That's what Lambo needs to get rid of to be successful at the moment.
Yes, it most certainly is. Lambo almost consumed his hatchery to death there, by the way. That got really low. It's at 160 HP, 161 now. Ooh, we're going to see the Sharkfester going for the sneaky... Oh, he grabs a Thor. Okay.
Okay.
The fungal from the front.
Wow, I mean, it's definitely a strong fight, right, as the Ghosts are getting blown up. We're going to cloak up now, not that that makes a difference. So many Overseers in the sky. The problem is it's mostly Lings left over. These couple of Libs might just want to unsiege and help out. They're still hitting things that are moving through the Thors, and Ghosts trying to run up this ramp. A lot of what Time has is in production at the moment, it would seem. A couple of Ghosts here that might just need to be saved, and he does lift them up. He needs to hold his position. He needs to hold his production lines as Lambo just keeps on finding engagements. Taking all of the attention onto that Thor initially allowed him to get forward, and then the panic of scanning and targeting the Infestor down meant that we weren't splitting the Ghosts away for the incoming Fungals, and as the Infestors kind of just bum rushed him a little bit. We're now going to try and run up this ramp here as Lambo. The Broodlords are showing up. There's really not many Thors to fight against, and the Broodlord count isn't exactly too amazing either, but the Broodlings right now are looking okay as Time's main base is under fire, and Time is now going to have some reinforcements to perhaps properly push this back. Lambo continues to make every single effort possible to stay in this game number 2 and this series.
He certainly is. We do see an EMP on, I guess, an Infestor in the back there. Lambo is going to be forced to disengage. His Broodlords are very much exposed, and they're on their own. The fungal growth does hit a couple of the Ghosts, and that's going to allow the Lings to take the engagement right here and will cover these Broodlords. But that one Thor kills 2, maybe even 3 Broodlords right there before finally going down. The one Big Daddy Thor holding the line, and Lambo is running out of units, but the Neural Parasite, it gets taken down. The Infestor goes down, and we are looking at a very, very Razor's Edge game.
Well, actually a ridiculous game. I mean, each and every fight that Lambo's taken is honestly ridiculous. I mean, another fungal here might actually kill off some of these Ghosts. All the Ghosts go down. Lambo's Lings are able to get there. I mean, reinforcements still coming out from Time. Another Neural. This time there's no Ghost to snipe the Infestor, but the Marines get forward. The Medevacs on low HP, healing them up. The supply's still dead even, as Time is just trying to get out units from his main base. And that's the big problem, is that he's just not being able to settle down for a bit. He's got no Ghosts left, though. Those Ghosts getting fungled and dying was absolutely critical, because all of a sudden, Time is in some trouble, right? Like, he doesn't have the answer to these Ultras coming online, and that might actually get a little bit awkward, as we will see Lambo losing this location. I mean, Lambo can't possibly have much mining left in him as well elsewhere on the map at this stage. This is getting very, very tense, because still, you can see how Time can lose this at this point. He has struggled to take fights over the last 10 minutes.
He certainly has, and it's not that he's been taking bad fights, it's that Lambo has been taking amazing ones. Another Neural Parasite going to steal a Thor, and he's going to kill a Ghost with it. Might get another one. Yes, he will. Massive plays out of Lambo once again. We're going to see the Liberator Siege gone up. There's no scan just yet, and a lot of Banes actually going up, but a massive fungal on the army. Lambo, though, doesn't want to push through those Liberators, and he will disengage. Still, the start of that fight was so good for Lambo.
These Liberators were so good, though. I mean, they got rid of so many of the Infestors when they popped up for the Fungal. That Fungal was so expensive. It cost you about 3 Infestors. And obviously the Medevacs just about kept things alive. The entire issue for Time is that he has to keep reinforcing out of the main, and from the main base, he has to run them through to the rest of his arm, and he just doesn't hold that position. This sounds almost ridiculous, but I actually think he'd be in better shape if he actually just lifted his production out the main and relocated to the left side. I know that might give you some time while you're not building, but he's lost so much trying to hold this location right here instead of just being able to hold back towards his bases. Lambo holds a supply lead again. Worker count in his favor, retaking this base and that forward position. And time just mining out those left side bases. What's resources lost like at this stage as we kind of end this edge towards 40 minutes? Like, it's got to be kind of crazy, no? As we got our Lings once again on this left side. There's still mining available here. Time needs to have some SCVs mining this base. He needs that income to continue rolling in. Otherwise, he's going to be in some trouble. And that's why Lambo is now focusing on this position, right? Saying, hey, look, I can actually do a lot here. As we do see the Neural on a Ghost. You know, another one of the issues, the Infestors go down last second. Fungal as the units try and get away. The last issue I was going to say for Time is that he's just been hit so hard by these Infestors because he clearly doesn't have the scans to keep on dropping, to keep track of the single Infestors sneaking forward. And that's been where Lambo found so much of the value in this game as well.
Yeah, it certainly has been an outstanding, I would say like 15 minutes out of Lambo. Since he took that one big engagement that we thought was going to be game ending, he has just found engagement after engagement after engagement that have been unbelievable. Genuinely, I don't know how he is finding them, but he is doing such a good job. He is going to try and come in once more. I don't know if this is the move. The Infestors are a little far away. He's trying to get in before the Liberators siege up, but they will siege up now. That being said, does he have enough? The Neural Parasite is going to come down, but it's too late. And Time will completely wipe out the army of Lambo.
GG.
And he doesn't have one more miracle.